My name is Kornfield. I am originally from Los Angeles, California. I was raised by my two lesbian moms and three gay dads, a sort of communal effort to raise me and my brother. I was raised atheist, and I went to an arts high school for 5 years in Los Angeles, and then moved to New York City to attend the School of Visual Arts, the Visual and Critical Studies program. I've always been drawn to the imagery of the Renaissance and the technical skill and sort of the beauty of oil painting that I think is very unique. And while attending SVA, I took a 6-month study in Rome, where we were doing classes on site in churches, at the Roman Colosseum and the Roman Forum, visiting museums in both art history and art classes. So drawing from the sculptures, from the paintings, from the architecture of the churches. And that was hugely formative for me in sort of developing, a particular relationship with European aesthetics and the stories behind so much of the history. Another very formative piece for me was a class I took at SVA that focused on the art history side of different spiritual and magical practices. And that opened me up to a different side of sort of spiritual aesthetic and belief and storytelling.
Being at SVA and hearing about Leipzig, Germany, what triggered your interest in us? Or what were your first thoughts about us Germans in terms of your religious interest in subject matter, but also regarding painting?
One of the first things I learned about Leipzig is it has a very particular figurative tradition. So while much of the rest of Europe was moving through abstraction in different modernist movements, Leipzig continued to be focused on a figurative aesthetics, because of many different factors that were going on in the region at the time. And I think it has led to a really unique approach to painting and the figure up through contemporary times. It's really fascinating and exciting. And in Italy and in Rome, there's a much more Catholic provenance and aesthetics. And in Germany, the Protestant Reformation and sort of Gothic architecture is still much more prominent here. And even the Baroque architecture in churches in Germany is much more minimal, as much as it is decadent in its own way. It's really beautiful and different and very inspiring.
You went on a very special trip. You went to Naumburg and Eisenach and finished with a documentary. Could you just say a few words about that experience?
One of the things that stuck out most for me was actually moving from East Germany to the West and seeing the difference in economic wealth just in the infrastructure, in the facades of the buildings. You could see the sort of wealth grow the farther west I went. So that was a very subtle but visual difference in sort of lasting consequences of policies around the reunification of East and West Germany. And going to Eisenach and going to the Wartburg Castle, when I arrived to Germany, I said, I can't leave the country without seeing at least one castle before the end of the residency. I finally saw one, and it was fantastic. The piece that sort of has stuck with me the most is it's one of the women's rooms, and it's this fantastic tile mosaic of different stories of sort of saints and myths local to Germany that I would still love to learn more about. It's, yeah, very intricate and really beautiful.
You are not going to leave us soon. You are actually going and following a path which will keep you staying in Germany. Could you say a few words about your interest in sites, for example?
Yeah, I have for a few years now explored abandoned buildings as sort of a hobby and a source of inspiration. I take a lot of photographs, actually in sort of these abandoned places. I feel particular sort of like peace in those places, and Zeitz is very economically depressed, and many of the buildings, I'd say about half the town is empty, and I'm very curious to spend more time there, learn more about it, and see what it's like to work in a place that's so vastly different from, of course, New York and Los Angeles, and even from Leipzig, which is sort of developed from, it seems like it used to be a more sort of economically destitute place and has developed into a very lively and thriving art and economic space. And Zeitz seems to sort of be a window into what life was like before all this like development took place.
To make you stay here between New York City and Leipzig, what makes a contemporary artist leave New York and come to us?
I think the types of stories and aesthetics I'm interested in don't have a lot of place in New York. Actually, there's not an openness to the things I am most deeply interested in, and I've been met with a lot more sort of interest and intrigue and support through not just the residency here, but people I met through the residency. And I really struggled to find that in New York City. And I hope to still work back and forth across the ocean. But I feel, yeah, really profoundly connected and inspired here. It's been wonderful. New York is an amazing place, but it doesn't actually have everything. There's a much bigger world out there, and each place has its own very special and unique offerings.